When you lock a steel vault, you can visibly see the physical protection holding that perimeter.
Right, you got the thick concrete walls, the heavy doors.
Yeah, exactly. There's a tangible line where the safe zone ends and the danger begins. But when you plug a server cluster into the internet, well, that visible barrier completely vanishes.
It's just gone.
You are suddenly operating at the speed of light. You're facing automated threats from every direction, all at once. And the only thing standing between your data and, total compromise is this invisible layer of mathematics and logic.
It's kind of terrifying when you put it like that.
Right. Well, welcome to the WeCyberYou Unlocked podcast. I'm your host, and today's deep dive is an exploration into those digital bulkheads holding the line. We are talking about network firewalls.
And I'm your resident expert here, and I have to say, the stakes with firewalls really cannot be overstated.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, if you deploy a server onto the public internet without proper firewall architectures, it isn't just a matter of if it gets attacked, it's literally a matter of minutes.
Just minutes. Wow.
Oh, yeah. Automated scanners will find it, they'll probe it for vulnerabilities, and they'll attempt to deploy ransomware or recruit it into a botnet almost immediately. Firewalls are the ultimate gatekeeper between your trusted internal network and the completely untrusted, chaotic Wild West of the internet.
Right. Now, if you are tuning into this deep dive, you probably already know the foundational basics of cybersecurity, like, the CIA triad, right?
Right. Confidentiality, integrity, and availability.
Exactly. Keeping sensitive things safe, ensuring data isn't secretly modified during transit, and making sure legitimate users can still actually get to their services without being blocked by denial of service traffic.
We all know firewalls are there to keep unauthorized users out.
Right. But what we really want to explore today is how modern firewalls actually achieve this at scale. Because whether you're just a curious learner or you're prepping for a big IT meeting, this session will really demystify how these digital bouncers actually work. The technology has evolved way beyond simple port blocking.
It really had to evolve because the threats just grew infinitely more sophisticated.
Okay, let's unpack this. To understand how they protect us, we first have to understand what exactly they're looking at. So let's imagine network data as physical mail.
Oh, that's a really good analogy.
Yeah. So when data travels, it's broken down into thousands of individual envelopes, which we call packets. And the earliest firewalls were basically just like mailroom clerks looking at the outside of those envelopes.
Right, the early days of basic packet filtering. Fast, but super limited.
So the clerk is just checking the return address, the source IP, the destination address, the protocol type, and the port number.
And then checking those against a strict rule book. Allow rules versus deny rules.
Like allowing employees to browse the web via HTTPS, but denying peer-to-peer file sharing.
Exactly. Or blocking traffic from known malicious countries. The firewall reads the envelope and then decides to allow, deny, inspect, log, or alert.
But if I'm a hacker, couldn't I just put a fake return address on my envelope? Or disguise my malicious package to look like normal web traffic?
Yes. And that is exactly what they started doing. Attackers started forging return addresses through IP spoofing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that basic mailroom clerk became a massive liability because they were only looking at isolated packets one at a time.
So how did the defense architecture adapt to that kind of active deception?
Well, the industry realized that treating every packet as an independent event was a losing battle. So they shifted toward stateful inspection.
Stateful inspection. Okay, so what does that actually mean?
It means that instead of just looking at single packets, stateful firewalls maintain a dynamic memory of active network sessions. They actually monitor the whole conversation.
Okay, wait. How does a firewall actually track a full conversation between two computers?
By monitoring the underlying protocols, specifically the TCP handshake.
Ah, the transmission control protocol.
Right. When your computer wants to talk to a web server, it sends a SYN packet to synchronize. The server responds with an SYN ACK, and then your computer replies with an ACK.
Like a secret handshake.
Exactly like that. And a stateful firewall monitors that exact sequence. It writes that session into a state table in its memory.
So if an external server suddenly tries to send inbound data to your network out of nowhere,
the firewall checks its state table. And if it sees that no internal device ever initiated a handshake with that specific external IP, it instantly drops the traffic.
Oh, that's brilliant. It validates the state of the connection itself, not just the static port rules.
Exactly.
That makes a ton of sense for blocking unsolicited traffic. But what if the handshake is perfectly legitimate?
What do you mean?
Well, say an employee clicks a link in an email and requests a file from an external server. The TCP handshake is valid. The firewall state table sees an established session, but the file being downloaded happens to contain a malicious payload.
Ah, yeah.
A stateful firewall only looking at the session state would just, wave that malware right through, wouldn't it?
It absolutely would. And that is the exact limitation that drove the creation of next-generation firewalls, or NGFWs.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Because to catch those malicious payloads, the firewall had to go deeper. It couldn't just stay at layer 4. It had to move up to layer 7, the application layer, using deep packet inspection, or DPI.
So instead of just looking at the envelope, DPI actually opens the package to look for malware.
Yes, it reads the letters inside. And what's fascinating here is the sheer computational heavy lifting involved.
Because packets don't always arrive in perfect order, right?
Exactly. The firewall intercepts the incoming packets, buffers them in its memory, and actually reassembles the fragmented data stream to recreate the original file or command sequence on the fly.
And once it's reassembled,
it runs the payload against a massive database of known malware signatures, vulnerability exploits, and heuristic models.
Wow. And because it's inspecting the payload at the application layer, it isn't restricted by port numbers anymore.
Right. In the old days, you might just block port 443 to stop encrypted web traffic, but today, basically everything runs over port 443.
Right. Attackers realized years ago that if they tunnel their command and control communications over standard HTTP or HTTPS ports, legacy firewalls will just let it pass.
Exactly. But DPI counters this by enabling application control. The NGFW analyzes the traffic patterns and the payload structure to identify the specific application generating the traffic. It completely ignores what port it claims to be using.
So you can enforce incredibly granular policies. Like you could tell the firewall, allow users to access the corporate instance of Microsoft Teams, but explicitly block them from using TikTok.
Yes. Regardless of how those apps try to route their traffic, it gives administrators surgical control over cloud applications and social media platforms.
But I have to push back on the mechanics of deep packet inspection here for a second, because there is a glaring cryptographic issue.
Oh.
Yeah, most of the internet is encrypted now with TLS. When I connect to a secure service, my data is mathematically scrambled from my laptop all the way to the destination server. How does a firewall inspect an encrypted package? It can't just crack modern encryption algorithms on the fly.
You're absolutely right. It cannot break the encryption. And attackers leverage this constantly, hiding their malware inside encrypted tunnels, knowing the firewall is blind to it.
So how do we fix that?
To solve this, enterprise firewalls perform SSL and TLS inspection by acting as an authorized man in the middle.
Wait, if a firewall intercepts my secure connection to my bank and tries to present a different certificate, my web browser is going to throw a massive red security warning screen.
It would.
Yeah, because the browser's fundamental job is to verify the identity of the server. That breaks the whole trust model of the internet.
It would break the trust model on a personal device. But in a corporate environment, the IT department manages the endpoints.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Yeah, they install a custom enterprise root certificate authority onto your company laptop. And because your operating system is explicitly programmed to trust this internal certificate, the firewall can seamlessly intercept your outbound request.
So the firewall establishes its own secure connection with the external bank server, and then establishes a separate secure connection back to my laptop.
Exactly.
And it signs that connection with that internal corporate certificate my computer already trusts.
Yes, and while it's doing that, the modern firewall temporarily decrypts the traffic in its memory, inspects a plaintext payload for malware, and if it's safe, seamlessly re-encrypts it and sends it along.
All of this happens in milliseconds.
Milliseconds, though doing that purely in software would absolutely cripple the network.
I can imagine.
So modern enterprise firewalls rely on specialized hardware.
Yeah.
Custom physical microchips designed specifically for cryptographic offloading.
That is wild. Okay, so we have this incredibly robust perimeter defense, right? Deep packet inspection, custom silicon for decryption, application control.
It's a very strong front door.
But even with the best front door security, what happens if an attacker sneaks in through a side window?
That's a great question.
Because assuming the perimeter is impenetrable is a very dangerous game. What if there's an infected smart TV in a conference room? Or a vendor plugs a compromised laptop directly into the internal network?
Right. The assumption that the internal network is a safe, trusted zone is completely obsolete. In the past, organizations just focused on data moving in and out of the building.
North-south traffic.
Exactly. But today, the focus is heavily on east-west traffic. data moving laterally from server to server within the network itself.
Hmm.
And this requires network segmentation.
This is where I love the analogy of a submarine.
Oh, yeah.
If you are in a submarine and the outer hull is breached, you don't want the entire ship to fill with water, so you seal the internal bulkheads.
Right.
You compartmentalize the damage. One flooded compartment doesn't sink the entire ship.
And we apply that exact philosophy through microsegmentation. You deploy internal firewalls to separate the guest Wi-Fi from the administration network or the student network from the financial systems.
So if an attacker manages to compromise a vulnerable web server, they can't simply pivot laterally and scan the rest of the network. The bulkhead stops them.
Yes. The only traffic allowed out of that web server is the specific queries required for it to function. And those internal choke points are where intrusion prevention systems, or IPS, actively fight off threats.
Right. Let's break down how an IPS actually detects an exploit. The sources mention buffer overflows and SQL injections. How does the firewall spot those in real time?
Well, a buffer overflow is when an attacker intentionally sends more data to an application than its memory buffer is designed to handle.
Trying to overwrite adjacent memory with malicious code, right?
Exactly. The IPS monitors the traffic stream, and if it detects an abnormally large payload targeting a known vulnerable service, it drops the packets instantly.
And for SQL injection, that's when an attacker tries to trick a database into revealing information by entering database commands into a standard web login form.
Right. The IPS engine contains thousands of syntax rules. It recognizes the malformed SQL syntax attempting to bypass the web front end and terminates the session before the database even sees it.
It also works in the opposite direction to prevent data from leaving, right? With data loss prevention?
Yes, DLP is a critical internal bulkhead. Organizations use DLP to stop intellectual property or credit card info from being exfiltrated out to the web. The firewall scans outbound traffic for specific data patterns and blocks it if it sees, say, a huge file of social security numbers leaving the network.
Okay, but let's look at the current reality of how businesses operate today. We've secured the perimeter and the interior, but the physical perimeter doesn't really exist for many organizations anymore.
No, it doesn't.
The workloads are hosted in the cloud, utilizing dynamic Kubernetes clusters, and the workforce is completely remote, working from coffee shops. So where does the firewall sit when there is no centralized physical choke point?
The architecture had to undergo a massive paradigm shift. We saw the widespread adoption of Secure Access Service Edge, or SASE. Right. With VANS, the firewall functionality is delivered entirely from the cloud.
Meaning no matter where the employee is physically located, their internet traffic routes through the cloud-based firewall for deep packet inspection before it ever reaches its destination.
Yes, and this cloud-centric approach ties directly into zero-trust security. The old model assumed internal users were trusted. Under zero trust, the new mantra is, never trust, always verify.
Okay, let's unpack this. In a dynamic cloud environment where IP addresses are constantly changing, how does a firewall actually enforce zero trust?
It evaluates the user's cryptographic identity, the specific device they are using, and the real-time security posture of that device. Every access request is independently authenticated based on context.
So if I try to access a sensitive database from my corporate laptop and my antivirus is up to date, it lets me in.
But if you use those same valid credentials from an unmanaged personal tablet on public Wi-Fi halfway across the world, the firewall's policy engine detects the anomaly. It either denies access or demands multi-factor authentication.
Wow. So what does this all mean? If we have deep packet inspection, microsegmentation, and zero trust, are we completely bulletproof?
I wish we were, but no. The brutal reality is that firewalls are essential, but they cannot stop the human element.
Right, they can't stop human psychology.
Exactly. A next-generation firewall won't protect against social engineering or an employee falling for a phishing scam. If an attacker manages to steal a valid session cookie from a user's browser, they can bypass the initial authentication entirely.
And if a cloud architect misconfigures a storage bucket to be publicly accessible, the firewall just sees authorized public web traffic. It doesn't know the data was supposed to be confidential.
Which is why firewalls are just one piece of a puzzle. They must be tightly integrated with multi-factor authentication and continuous security awareness training. The technology enforces the policy, but humans define the policy.
Which underscores why understanding the underlying mechanics of these systems is so vital for anyone working in tech today. Firewalls have evolved from basic port blockers into incredibly intelligent security platforms that provide global coverage, threat prevention, and complex access control.
They truly are an indispensable part of modern architecture.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the mechanics of network firewalls. We always appreciate you spending time with us on the WeCyberYou Unlocked podcast to explore the real technical realities beneath the surface. Please take a second to follow the channel and visit WeCyberYou.com for more deep dives and exclusive cybersecurity content.
But before we wrap up, I do want to leave you with a final thought on where this technology is heading next.
Oh, please do.
The sources note that firewalls are evolving toward AI-driven threat detection and behavioral analytics.
Meaning the system learns your specific patterns, like tracking your typical connection times or the volume of data you usually download.
Exactly. Establishing what is normal versus suspicious for every individual user. So if tomorrow's firewalls are constantly using AI to analyze our minute-to-minute behavior in the office, where exactly do we draw the line between necessary corporate security and total behavioral surveillance in the workplace?
Wow, that is a complex balance between network visibility and individual privacy. The digital bouncer isn't just checking your credentials at the door anymore. It is scrutinizing every single move you make inside the building.
Definitely something to ponder.
Absolutely. Something for you to think about until next time. Keep your network secure, keep your bulkheads sealed, and we will see you on the next deep dive.